What is up, Ravens Flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell, Glenn Martin, here to talk to you guys about none other than the Baltimore Ravens and continue our series of training camp battles, all things position groups, and things to look out for. So today we are focused on the tackles. We're excited to get into it because there's, unlike other position groups, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of intrigue, like Michael Scott would say. But before we get into it, take a second, hit the subscribe button, give us a like, and make sure to leave your comments below, turn on your notifications, because, ladies and gentlemen, the rookies reported today. It's here. Off season is over. It's over, and the news is only going to start breaking. The developments and all the stories coming out of camp is only going to start getting faster and faster. So make sure you stay up to date. But Glenn, let's talk about our Baltimore Ravens and their potential issues and strong spots and all between at tackle. Which side of the line do you want to start at?
Well, I'm going to give you the group first, like all the group, the current tackles on the roster heading into camp. Now, of course, these guys are all competing for less jobs than everyone would be hoping for, but there's just not a ton of positions available versus the amount of players currently on the roster. So first and foremost, I'm going to start with the rook, Daniel Faalele, which, by the way, Jimbo, you mentioned how they arrived today. I saw the clip of Daniel entering the facilities. Dude, how is it that he's almost 400 pounds and he there's no fat on this guy? Like, I don't understand how you can be that heavy. And first of all, his arms are cut up. Like, the dude is just a big looking dude.
You ever heard of taro, Glenn?
No, I don't think so.
It's purple. It's like a potato. It's about 10 times as dense as a potato. They call it the Samoan steroid. It's the staple in a lot of Polynesian cultures' food, and that's what they attribute all of it to. So the secret's in the taro.
He must have been eating that a ton growing
up.
He still is. I mean, he's just gigantic, and it gets you excited, right? Like, as I look at him and I go, he doesn't, because a lot of times a guy that's 6'8", nearly 400 pounds, he's got the knees that knock. He's kind of oafy looking. He's not athletic. This guy looks like a huge athlete. And so anyway, I'm gonna get off of the excitement train of Daniel Faalele, but he's getting me excited as the what if at only 22 years old, what he could be in a year or two. But yeah, he's the first to arrive. Then Jawan James, then Jared Jones-Smith, who's got 1 year experience, out of Pitt. Morgan Moses, the vet, the big-time free agent addition for the Ravens at tackle. And then, of course, our most expensive player currently on the roster, soon to be eclipsed, hopefully, by Lamar Jackson, Ronnie Stanley, manning, hopefully, the left side as he continues to recover and rehab from the multiple injuries he sustained to that one leg over this last, year and a half. But I did see an encouraging clip of him, or I think it might have just been a still from a clip of him that looked like he was getting it, kind of pushing some weight around. So let's hope. And that's really where it starts, right, Jimbo? Does all this not start, finish, and whatever you want to say, behind Lamar Jackson, the second most important is Ronnie Stanley, right?
Yeah, I mean, situationally in the tackle room, Ronnie Stanley is like when Lamar Jackson when LeBron James is a free agent and everyone's just waiting and no one else does anything until Your Highness, he makes his move and then everyone else just kind of subsequently makes their moves, right? Like Ronnie Stanley is the first domino that we need to know about. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we ain't going to know about it till about 4 days before week 1. Like, I just don't anticipate there being any clarity there because, one, there's really no need for them to risk it. Let him keep resting. Let him keep doing individual stuff. But we'll hold on to every good news line and story that we can. And Glenn, I'm going to tell you this.
He's got to practice, Jimbo.
He's got to get some practice in. I mean, I guess that's
Got to
true.
get a lot of practice. He hasn't played in a long time.
You're right. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think you know how slow John's going to play this thing, right?
He is, but he's got to get him game ready for week 1 if he wants him to play.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. But where is that balance? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's going to be interesting. But I'm going to go on the optimistic side with Ronnie. I think he's out there week 1. I think he plays, and I think he's some semblance of his original self when he's out there. So I think the way that we should do this, Glenn, is let's do 2 scenarios.
All right.
Let's say Ronnie's there. Let's start there.
Okay.
Now, who do you see? I mean, I think it's pretty simple then at that point, right? On the right side, are you just plugging Morgan Moses in?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. And I'm letting Daniel Faalele continue to work. Honestly, if I was the Ravens and they had the luxury to do this, I would be putting and seeing what he's got. I mean, unless they think he has no chance at left. Now, I've heard that he's been spotted at left.
Correct?
Yeah, that Daniel Faalele's been spotted at left, because I think you're right. If Ronnie's there, it's Ronnie at left and it's Morgan at right. And then and a guy we haven't even mentioned is Patrick McCarry, which I think is worth mentioning, because although he's not listed in the tackle room, he's the obvious replacement for probably both of these guys.
And he is on the ESPN depth chart for left tackle.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I think you're right. It's those guys. But, and then Juwan James, to me, is another guy who I consider a bit of a luxury. I mean, I look at Juwan James and I say, well, if he can keep playing, and if he's, back to being what he was, at least at the height or near the height of his career, I guess we shouldn't expect him to get back to where he was, but he hasn't played in, 2.5 years, and the Ravens could save $3 million by cutting him. But Jimbo, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Are you encouraged more so by the fact that there's only 5 true offensive tackles heading into camp, and then of course McCarry is the 6th? Does that encourage you at all that Ronnie Stanley might be ready to participate in more of camp than you thought?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is encouraging, right? Now, you are counting into that number McCarry, right?
Well, McCarry makes it 6, and honestly, I guess we got to keep it realistic, and Tyree Phillips should be in that group, I guess, too, right?
Right.
I mean,
so I am encouraged. But at the same time, the Ravens also have contingencies in that, like, Phillips has done both.
Yeah.
And then McCarry just.
So that will bring it to 7.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm encouraged either way. I think that'll be really interesting to see. Really, the questions that I have are around Juwan James. Is there any way, like, I know we save $2.5 million if we let him go.
Something like that, yeah.
It'll be really interesting to see how. I guess it's beneficial for the Ravens to keep him during camp because of injuries and things like that. But if another team has an injury, will another team come knocking on the door? In preseason week 2, preseason week 3, whatever. I'm interested to see how the Ravens use Juwan James, whether they consider him most valued in letting him go, in trading him, or, in getting the extra cash, trading him and getting an asset, or keeping him on the roster as a player. If you had to think of one of those 3 scenarios, what do you consider to be the most likely?
Well, I think we could get the answer in preseason. And the reason I say that is if we see a ton of Juwan James, and almost as if the Ravens are spotlighting him, highlighting him, going, look, guys, look at this right tackle we got. Then maybe they will use that as a way to try and offload him and get something back in return. Or what if we see them kind of hide Juwan James and say, we don't think Juwan's quite ready yet? Maybe then they're trying to hide him in hopes to, if they had to cut him, that they could then bring him back or slide him through to the practice squad even. I don't know how, like, his tenure, I don't know how it works. If he's even eligible he may not even be eligible for the practice squad since he's a 7-year vet.
Right.
But I think it will be interesting to watch how they use him in preseason. Do we see him at all on the left side? Do we see Daniel Faalele at all on the left side? Or are they both strictly on the right side during the preseason?
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see. If I had to predict.
Who plays left tackle during the because it's not Ronnie, right? No way.
Yeah.
Even if he's healthy.
Right. And it's probably not McCarry. Because you don't want to risk him. It's got to be Faalele, right?
Or Tyree, but it sounds like they might want to try and give the left guard job to Tyree. So it's like,
Who's the other kid that they got? They got the other.
They got
kid.
Jared Jones-Smith.
Jared Jones-Smith. All right, then it's Jared Jones-Smith.
I guess so.
But don't you dare put Lamar out there with Jared Jones-Smith in front of him.
No chance. No chance. Your boy Huntley's going to be out there with Jared Jones protecting.
That is
block.
okay with me. You do your job, Huntley. All right.
But I think now let's switch it though. Let's go because I think we both know if now let's make it a little more difficult. What if Ronnie's he just ain't ready, Jimbo? He's pup listed. He's gonna miss the first 6 weeks.
You're killing me. Well, so the question is, who's at left tackle?
Yeah, who's at left and who's backing him up? And
if Ronnie's not ready to go, I think Tyree Phillips is at left tackle.
Wow, Tyree.
Yeah,
that terrifies me.
I mean, are you more terrified by McCary?
No, I'd rather have McCary in there.
I think that if he can't go, there's a possibility that those two could be next to each other on the left side of the line.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I'm not too confident on who's where.
Whether McCary's at guard or tackle and vice versa.
Now, we could also see, which could be exciting and terrifying. I know you're terrified of Phillips being at left, but you got Phillips there, and then you got Ben Cleveland next to him. Those are some big boys right there.
Yeah, they're big. They'd be good in the run game.
But you're right. It is a little scary seeing Tyree Phillips out there where McCary just has this uncanny ability to hold on.
Just barely survive
like a
every
sucker
play.
Fish on a whale. You know what I'm talking about? Just the entire ocean just holding on, man. Like, it's just ridiculous. So,
but I tell you what, I know that we had a I think it was Andy Greeter on that talked about Daniel Faalele. I mean, I'm no expert on offensive line play. I just see a guy that looks that big, that looks that in shape, that looks to be that athletic at that size, and I just go, why not? You know, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, he's bigger than Orlando Brown.
That's saying something.
The length.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's just
so young in football.
He is young in football.
And that's my only concern. But for his size, he's a ridiculous athlete. I would venture to say that if as a raw athlete, he's certainly more athletic than an Orlando Brown Jr. Like if you stick him in another sport, he's going to be better.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And so as long as he can anchor, then I think his length is just to get around him, even as a speed rusher, it's going to take some time because he's so daggone big and long. As long as he can anchor against the speed, against the bull rush, then, I mean, I don't know that maybe that's for
by week 1.
Yeah, I know that's a lot. So I think ultimately, if Ronnie's not going to be a go, then Patrick McCarry's the guy.
Okay,
because that's the guy they feel most comfortable.
So I'm going Tyree Phillips. You're going McCary.
Yep, and then I think that Jared Jones-Smith is going to get a ton of run in preseason, but I don't think he makes the team unless they decide to either trade or cut Juwan James for the cap savings.
And then ultimately, what do you see happening with Juwan? How will, by week 1, what will be the status of Juwan James?
Man, that's such a good one. That's such a good question because it's like he could sit on your bench all year because Morgan Moses never misses games. You
never know.
Yeah, exactly. But you could be extremely valuable and you could need him week 2. And then all of a sudden that $2.5 million is a bargain.
Right.
I think that ultimately it comes down to if they can afford to have the luxury of Juwan James, then they'll keep him. And if they have a rash of injuries, say at linebacker or outside linebacker or anywhere else where they need that money, then that's where they'll go first to get the money is Juwan James. But if everyone else stays, even if there's injuries here and there, as long as it's not a one position group gets decimated like we saw a few last year, then I think they could keep him because they don't want to have a situation where they're back to, a patchwork offensive line and Lamar has no confidence in him. Now he's running for his life. And what if he gets hurt again? But I will say with Faalele backing up Morgan Moses, does it not lessen the need for Juwan James?
Right. Yeah. It's all so interesting. But I think ultimately what happens is week 1, just my opinion, I think it's Ronnie and Moses. If not, like you said, where we differ is that you have McCary at left tackle. I have Phillips at left tackle. And then to answer my own question, I think Juwan James ends up getting traded because of Daniel Faalele. And I think he ends up being out the door because the Ravens, if they can get a pick back, even if it's conditional or whatever, right? Like if they can get another swing at the draft next year, I think they're going to value that highly.
Especially because I don't think they have any comp picks coming back next year, which is a very rare thing.
Yeah,
for the Ravens to not have incoming comp
Good
picks.
point.
So they trade Juwan for a 5th, and that's like getting a comp pick, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So let us know what you guys think when it comes to the tackle. What ends up happening? Give us all your thoughts below, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.